John Keim covers the Redskins. He'll be at the Eagles-Redskins. 5 straight, the Redskins have kind of owned this series here in recent times, John. But this one here is a big game for both teams to kind of set the tone for what should be a very entertaining NFC East. Give us a little background on the Redskins offseason.
Boy, how much time do we have for that one? I mean, it's, I think there are a lot of fans here who I think are a little bit ambivalent toward this team, in part because of what happened in the offseason. And they fired General Manager Scott McCloughan. I think there was probably some decent reasons for it. So, but he's gone. Fans trusted him, but wasn't working here. So he's gone. Kirk Cousins unsigned. They lost Pierre Garçon and Deshaun Jackson, replaced him with Terrell Pryor, and then Josh Doxson, who was in-house. So they added DJ Swearinger to safety, Zach Brown at linebacker, drafted Jonathan Allen. So there's been a mix of like what seems like chaos or same old Redskins, but also, some moves I think have been pretty good. So I think they're kind of like right in that same mix like a lot of the other teams in the NFC East. If certain things break right, it could be a good year for them.
John, I think when I look at this game, the one spot that I keep bringing up is the receivers of Washington. You got big physical guys there. Maybe that Deshaun Jackson game breaker's not there. Jamison Crowder, who I know has been banged up, it looks like he'll play. That looks like a little bit of a mismatch. The Eagles secondary not very good, but they're smallish as well. And if Malcolm Jenkins has to come in the slot against Crowder, it looks like a guy that's an area that can really be exploited.
Yeah, and I think the key there will obviously be how they handle what the Eagles do up front. Because if they can give Kirk Cousins time, I can tell you that this group always feels comfortable in their game plan against the Eagles because they like the coverage the Eagles throw at them. They feel like they handle it well, and if they get the time, they feel like they can beat it. So I don't think there's anything different about that this season. I think the mystery surrounds the timing between Cousins and Pryor, and then what Josh Doxson can do. Doxson is the guy that people here will rave about more than any other receiver, and they love Crowder. They really like what Pryor adds. They love Ryan Grant, who's a fourth-year guy who hasn't done a whole lot, but he's kind of like the training camp phenom every year. But Doxson is the guy that makes them salivate because they see him doing things in practice that other guys don't do. He's a smooth route runner. Like Pryor, he's a very good athlete. Pryor is freakishly athletic. Doxson is really good tracking skills like Deshaun Jackson. It's just that he doesn't have Jackson's speed, but he's a guy that if he's healthy and he's been, and he's in he can be a really good threat for them. The question though is, we haven't seen it in a real game with him. So that's always the question. So right now with him, it's just about what they think he can do.
Right. John Keim, ESPN.com, covers the Washington Redskins. What about Rob Kelly? How does he change the run game? Because Matt Jones was kind of a dynamic, freakish type of writer. You looked at this guy and you were like, man, who chiseled this guy out? Didn't work out with him. How does Kelly change the run game?
Yeah, well, he started against the Eagles in that second win by Washington last year, and he's a lot more consistent than Matt Jones was. Jones has the size and the speed and all that, but he didn't always run with consistency. He fumbled a little bit too much. At times ran way too upright. Kelly is much more consistent with the run and all that. Not gonna like really beat you. He's not gonna beat you downfield. He can make you miss in the backfield and turn a 2-yard loss into a 4-yard gain. I think against a team like the Eagles, that's kind of important because with that wide nine, as you know, they get up the field fast and try to get you in the backfield. He was good last year, and they were good last year at avoiding a lot of those negative runs. So I think his vision is pretty good. His footwork is pretty good. I think he's a fine back. I think that's how I would classify him. I don't think he's anything special.
He's a big back.
Yeah, he has good size, and he runs with good power. It's just that he's not going to be a dynamic guy. I think he's improved catching the ball. But they also have Chris Thompson, and that's the guy that again, you ask anybody here, he's their best running back. It's just that he's only 5'8", $190. he's not going to get 20 carries a game or 20 touches a game.
John, last year, Ryan Kerrigan, you would have thought he had an Eagles jersey on. He was in the backfield so often. What do you have, 7.5 sacks? We know Vaitai had his first start in that game. A lot of people think just having Lane Johnson back really changes the dynamic of this game. Do you think the Redskins pass rush will be as dynamic this time around?
Well, yeah, I mean, clearly having Lane Johnson back changes things for Kerrigan and the rush. Obviously, he's a lot more athletic than anybody Kerrigan has faced there last year. The difference with the Redskins pass rush this year will not be so much with Kerrigan, but with what Junior Galette does. And he's going to be playing for the first time after a two-year absence. He's looked good throughout the summer and in practices leading up to this game. So he's a guy to really watch. He's the guy that gives you explosion off the edge, and they can mix and match him a little bit. You can throw a curveball at like a Peters or something like that because he'll have to go against Preston Smith more or less, and then you can come back with a speed explosion guy like Galette. So, that's where I think you're going to get your pass rush. And then the thing that we don't really know yet, too, is how aggressive will this defense be under a new coordinator, Greg Minuski. That was another offseason move. They fired their coordinator. I forgot about that one. And they lost their offensive coordinator, too. Those are two big deals. But with Greg Minuski in there, probably more and different types of blitzes. So I think what I would look for too, perhaps, is inside linebacker Zach Brown trying to come up the middle a little bit more than what we've seen in the past year. So those are ways I think they're going to try and manufacture the rush more so than just relying on being a backup right tackle.
Hey, John, what is Washington concerned about when they look at Philly? Philly added a lot, so they're different offensively. There's no question about that. They got some – the weapons last year were pretty minute. I guess if you were a defensive coordinator, there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to be concerned about. So what is Washington's concern when they look at the new Philly team?
Well, I think there's two things. One, the front seven. I think they still – even though – I was a big Benny Logan fan. I mean, I enjoyed watching that guy play, but that's still a really good front seven of defensive front. So I think that's one thing that they are concerned about. And then I think with the new weapons with Alshon Jeffrey, Troy Smith, LeGarrette Blount, how does that all fit together? And I think with Wentz, and I went back and rewatching that game, the second game especially last year, there were a lot of times that he kept plays alive that just didn't result in the big plays they should have and sometimes it was because of a throw he made. They want to force him to his left, and he missed a deep shot last year being forced to his left. But sometimes it was also because you didn't have guys getting open or after the catch being able to do a whole lot with it. And I think that's a difference, and that's something that they know they are concerned about this time.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point because we don't know what the running game is going to look like either. Like, who's going to carry the ball, how's that's all going to go. So I guess if you're a defensive coordinator trying to figure Philly out in the run game's tough, but just adding Jeffrey and how Smith is going to kind of work in here, and then Ertz, I guess playing Philly in week one is not probably something. It's much like when Chip Kelly that night when that famous 2013 game where the Redskins were the team that didn't have any idea what to expect that night. Not quite the same, but way different personnel than they've been used to dealing with this team.
Correct. And at least the one thing in their benefit, they've played Torrey Smith and Alshon Jeffrey. They have played Carson Wentz, even though Wentz this summer when you'd see him, he looked like he clearly had improved. They know what kind of runner LeGarrette Blount is. I think they know what the Eagles like to do offensively. So I think they have a handle on the individual guys. It's just a matter of how do they fit it all together.
Yeah.
And I think they just played Alshon Jeffrey in December, and there are certain things the guy is really good at, and you expect the Eagles to use him in that way. He's really good on the dig routes. He can get deep a little bit. Josh Norman just played him, so I think that helps. But the bottom line is he's a really good player. So they've added good players there, and I think it sounds like they're having some of the same growing pains maybe that the Redskins are with having new receivers, where it's like you got to get the timing down, and when that timing gets down, that's when it's more dangerous. Will it be there week one? I think that's another question that you don't know. I'd say that for both sides. But certainly for the Eagles, you look at that with Wentz and Jeffrey, that would be a concern if I'm the Eagles. And if you're the Redskins, you have to hope that it's something that takes place later in the season.
Hey, John, tell us about the loss of Cravens and how big a loss that is. Kind of an odd story there. It seemed like he was going to retire or step away from the team. Well, he'll be back, but he's not going to play this week. What does that mean in this game?
Well, first of all, we don't know if he's coming back or not. He's just on the exempt list, so he has a month to figure things out, and they do too. And then we'll go from there as far as, like, knowing whether or not he'll actually return. He was going to start alongside DJ Swearinger at safety. Did not play safety last year. They put him as a nickel dime linebacker, kind of a hybrid role. He's more of a natural safety. Big guy, 6'2", 215, good instincts, good energy on the field. So they don't have that size back there. But they replaced him with DeShazer Everett. He picked off a pass in the end zone last year in that second game. Not as big, but he is physical, and but he's more of a guy that should be a good backup safety / special teamer more than a guy that you say you want him starting long term. And I think long term, if Cravens doesn't come back, they drafted a rookie in the 4th round, Monte Nicholson, and they also have D'Angelo Hall on the PUP list. So after 6 weeks, he could be an option. But right now, it's DeShazer Everett is the guy.
John, obviously the Redskins, as you mentioned, had some changes. The Eagles had some changes. They've won 5 straight against the Birds. Is this I don't want to say it's not a make-or-break game. We know that. But if they beat the Eagles, it certainly should help them when they play again down the road to think that, hey, we got this team's number. Do you feel like they have this team's number?
I don't know. Like I said, what I know is that they feel good about the game plans that they have against the Eagles, especially against that defense. I don't think the Redskins are good enough to walk around feeling they have anybody's number.
Right.
I think they'd admit that. They'd say the same thing. I just think they feel good playing against them. And I think, a big factor here too is this is the 4th opener for them under Jay Gruden. They've lost the first 3. They've started a little bit sluggishly in each of those years. I think that's a big focus as well. And they kind of look sluggish at times in the preseason, so there's some concern there. But I think how this division is. I don't think you can ever feel like you have someone's number because things change in this division fast. And I think this year things are so tight that it's going to be, you need to win those home division games at the least. And I think that's where their focus has to be is win at home against a division opponent. That's pretty big.
All right, they start the season down there on Sunday. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. John Keim covers the Redskins. ESPN's NFL Nation reporter, John Keim. Thanks, pal.
Thank you.